welcome to the Gal Matrix. Um, I feel like I kind of tricked you into coming on. I've been asking you for weeks.
Let's do that.
And when I talked to you about it being an act of support for all the people who are either losing their jobs or experiencing extreme insecurity, having to document the 5 things they did last week, that was when you agreed to come and talk with me and everyone. And I'm so glad you're here.
My pleasure.
So, Kelly and I know each other because she's basically responsible for my entire career.
Not
Um,
really.
I owe her about 5 kidneys. You know that's true. And we've both been through an enormous amount of uncertainty. We've both been laid off. We've had to lay off hundreds of people. So I think, yes. So I think that you will definitely have some coping strategies. So to start us off, I want to tell a quick story about one of the most uncertain times of my career, which was when I was on maternity leave with my first baby. And you decided to basically overhaul the way that we did HR for the 22,000 people that worked at the company that we worked at together.
Yeah,
Remember?
I do remember that. I'd forgotten that you were on leave though, because that all kind of blurred into one big, huge thing.
It did. It did. And at the time, I remember being so just, well, number one, I had brain fog, right? Because I was
Well, you
trying.
were pregnant, so.
No,
Mhm.
it was, I
Oh,
had,
oh, that's right. You'd had the baby. Sorry. So, yeah, wow.
yeah.
Nothing
But
else going on.
the story of it, I think, is one of the coping strategies that we have for people. And the story was that you were getting all this pressure to scale how to support 22,000 people instead of 10 with an HR function, right? And so you decided that before someone else was going to come and do something to you, that you were going to change how the whole organization was supported by HR, and you were going to invent something out of nothing, really, right?
hmm hmm
And that was to create centers of excellence and an HR help desk.
hmm We did that.
It sounds a lot easier than it was when you say it in a sentence and a
Yeah,
half.
it wasn't my most popular decision, no.
No. But then 6 years later, everybody was so glad.
I think so. I mean, it was inevitable whether we did it or somebody else did it to us, and we could either retain the control and go ahead and try and make it into what we wanted, or hand it off to a consulting company that had already started approaching my boss and giving them ideas about what we could do, which basically was taking HR out of the hands of the company and putting it into, some sort of a outsourced business.
Wow. And I didn't even realize, and I don't know if anyone did, how much pressure there was, that if you didn't figure out how to make this happen, make something different happen, it was going to get taken out of your control. And so I think that's the first coping strategy that I would share, is when things are really uncertain, um, to try to be what's, to me, in the cause, meaning you're part of making a transformation as opposed to it happening to you. Um, and you definitely did that, but it took a lot of trust cash, right? To
Yeah,
get
I think I pretty much used up my whole bank that year.
you did. You did. And I think one of the, as a recipient of that and not really being able to see what the North Star was, I remember just being so out of it, and you were like, here's what we do today and here's what we're gonna do, and I want you to help figure out how to do it. And I remember looking at you bleary eyed and thinking, but wait, what you have on this side, that's what I know how to do. That's all I've ever done.
Well,
I
I
don't,
think it's all any of us had ever done was HR one way,
yeah,
right? Pretty much
yeah.
the
And
way
you,
that people liked it there. Very
oh,
high touch.
very high touch. I get to go down to, Tammy's office, my HR lady, and we just kind of shoot the shit for an hour. And I tell her what's really making
Hmm.
people, and she can change my benefits pin for me. And, it's just like the full meal deal.
Hmm.
What we moved to, which was a help desk.
Yep. Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, so that's my first
Which
coping.
was fine for everyone. I mean, I think the greatest part of the population, for the most part, would not have cared as long as they got an answer, and that was what we were trying to get was people answers instead of them waiting for Betty or Polly or whomever in HR to call them back because they were serving all these other people. We thought we'd give them a direct route, and I think the majority of the population was fine with that. It was those that were used to their person being dedicated to them and their group constantly and that no one else could possibly help them. And that was and our own people were very invested in that too. So it was really hard for them to let go of that, one-on-one kind of approach.
Absolutely. And I think that the way that you taught us to show people that they would actually like it, and you didn't even use this acronym, but it's like it's with them. What's in it for me? But
I wish I had thought of that,
yeah, that at the time, but that's what you did. You taught us how to show people and speak to what they would get in exchange for making this transition. And I think that's the second takeaway is when you're the person who's getting the curveball thrown at you, to even though your first instinct, mine's always been to like deer in the headlights, I go straight into fight or flight. But if after that people can go, okay, are there any opportunities in this for me that maybe I didn't see before? And eventually I did find that, because truth be told, in my career, which I couldn't have seen at the time, if I hadn't said yes to you to try to do that, and I hadn't gone and learned everything about every department in HR, I would never have been able to get a job leading HR as a function.
I don't know about that because you would have thrown yourself into it with the same amount of energy and expertise that you did everything. But I'm in violent agreement with you that it did offer us opportunities as a department to create actual centers of excellence that we really didn't have before. I mean, we had fully functional HR departments in every site that did everything from A to Z that they could for people. And when we took that away from them, it shook everyone. I mean, just the idea that you didn't have the same role that you had before is always very upsetting to anybody, and HR is no different. And when we told people they were going to have to stay in their lane, for lack of a better way to describe it, and do different things and send people to different places to get help, it was very threatening. And some people like yourself and quite a few others saw the opportunity there and really embraced it and grew skills. I mean, we'd never had investigations done by a group or person before. It was always decentralized, and all of that got so much better for the company. And I would argue even that the business partner group that was supposed to be solely focused on supporting executives, got more time to do what they were chartered with too.
Yeah. Now, whether they could do that thing or not is a different question, right? And
Exactly, completely different.
so, yeah, I think when you get that curveball, trying to be in the cause, trying to look for what is potentially in it for you. I think the other thing is, for me, I think The Rock said this: control what you can, know what is in your control and what is
Right.
not. And
Yeah.
I think that's a lot. Knowing that so much is out of your control is a lot of what makes us go sideways and maybe like get in our own way. Um, and I definitely did that a number of times. And thank God.
Oh, I think we all did.
Yeah, I think we all did too. But luckily, whenever I did that with you, by coming, telling you that everything sucked and this was such a huge mistake, and right, and the business partners weren't cooperating, you let me vent. And so that's the next thing that I would say is an important coping strategy. I don't necessarily think that the right place to vent is at work. You have to have a super high level of trust with the person you're venting to if you're going to vent at work. But finding somebody that you can word vomit to, finding somebody who can listen to you, validate you, but then also be like, okay, what can you control right now? What
Mm-hmm.
just need to chill out and wait to
Mm-hmm. Yep.
um
And remembering, I mean, I must have said this way too many times, and it seems kind of trite now, but I mean, we weren't landing planes or saving babies or finding a cure for anything. We were doing human resources work, which was very important and critical to the company being able to complete its mission. But for the most part, we were not trying to save anyone's life or anything. We certainly had those occasions where, crazy things happened at work, but for the most part, we were just trying to make things work better for people, which is the mission anyway, right? I mean, we're there to provide a function that allows other people to get back to work, designing, selling, whatever.
I just got momentarily distracted when you said we weren't like trying to save anyone's lives. I was remembering during H1N1 when you and I both got accused of actually putting someone's life in jeopardy.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Whole other episode called HR Stories. We could do a whole episode on you putting
Oh,
in charge of global investigations and all of
mm,
the crazy things that we got
mhm.
witness with me doing that. Okay,
Great story. So,
so many stories. But the last one for today, the last coping strategy is what I call keeping your powder dry. Okay. And I don't mean cocaine. I've had so many say like, what are you talking about, drugs? No, it's a reference that somebody I worked with once shared with me that is about gunpowder, believe it or not.
yep.
That's
Mm-hmm,
powder in question.
mm-hmm,
And that during the wars where people had to use muskets, they could only fire the musket if their gunpowder was
mm-hmm.
dry. So the analogy here is try not to get in your own way by venting to the wrong person, by
Mm-hmm.
extreme quitting a la Jerry Maguire, because it's better to get a job when you have a job,
Oh my goodness, yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yes. Mm-hmm.
sometimes when we're so escalated, we end up really, really stepping in it. And I know I've done that plenty of times. In fact, you created a policy that people couldn't leave the company and come back more.
My proudest moment, by the way. I ended up believing that that was real and it wasn't.
No, I know it wasn't real. Went around telling people that you had created a policy because I had quit 2 times and come back, and you were just like, this is bullshit, that's not happening again.
It didn't work, by the
I know
way.
a policy just about that. Nobody, right? But you would tell people that, and the last time I left, it was for good. uh,
Mhm.
that was funny. That sounded like I was like high on a gummy just now. The last time I left, it was for good. That makes Okay. So speaking of other things you can do to get
Mhm.
away, remember, we'll call him Darnell.
Darnell, yes, I remember Darnell well.
Yes.
Hmm.
So Darnell was going through some really unstable. Poor Darnell, man. Yeah, he got a new boss and he the boss's assistant did not care for him, and he was struggling to do his job, and he did not keep his powder dry. He did not. He, rather than controlling what he could control, he focused all of his anger and resentment on, we'll call her Daisy.
Daisy, yeah, poor
Daisy,
Daisy.
the admin.
Mm-hmm.
And Daisy did not suffer fools. She did not. No, Daisy had a lot of power in that organization. So one day Darnell was fed up with Daisy, and he meant to send an instant message to his friend saying that Daisy was a bitch.
Correct.
But in
Not what you just said, yes, but not that Daisy was a bitch, but yes.
no, no, not saying that. But he accidentally instant messaged Daisy.
Did indeed.
Daisy's
Mm-hmm.
such a bitch. And then he had to call me once he realized, because I was their HR person at the time. This was before the transformation. And he was sobbing and he was begging me to save his job. While I was on the freeway, I remember exactly where I was. I was on Highway 26 driving in the office. He was like, I screwed up and you have to save my job. And I was like, oh, what did you do, Darnell? What did you do? And then he told me what he did. And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Like
Mm-hmm.
you just cooked yourself.
Yes.
This is not good. And poor Darnell, he sobbed through the whole termination meeting. And I had to sit there and try to keep a straight face. And it was the hardest.
Mm-hmm. That's how you go from making what, probably 200 grand a year to working the parts department at Harley Davidson. Bless his heart. I think he's still there.
I don't know. I don't know whatever became of him. We have lots more Darnell stories actually, but that's the one that really illustrates the coping mechanism of keeping your powder dry so that you don't inadvertently end up signing
Shooting
your,
yourself in the foot, yes, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah,
Mhm.
doing the gun analogy of powder and musket and all of that.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
trying.
okay, so our key takeaways for today are figure out what you can control and focus on that, even if it's only one or two things.
I would offer even it's worthwhile of making a list of those things and the things that you can't, because and to start with everyone else. You cannot do anything about anybody else. So, but
That's
yes.
true.
Mhm.
That's so true. And then we said find ways to be in the cause. So trying to be part of the future. And that sometimes means saying, yes, you'll give something a try you've never done before.
Absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah. And then I would just say, when in doubt, give it a whirl.
I
Right.
think honestly, both of our careers have pretty much benefited the most from us saying yes when there was an obvious reason to say no was that we didn't know what we're doing, or we don't know where that's going to go, but the yes part allowed us to be seen as positive influencers for change as opposed to people that didn't want something to change, which, I mean, it's your natural reaction most times.
It is. It is. And I think that's a really good final point, because if you say yes in the moment, when you're escalated and someone's just giving you a huge life or career curveball, you can change your mind later.
Of course you can, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kelly,
Elizabeth.
thank you so much for joining me in the Gal Matrix. I cannot wait for our next conversation together. And I hope that you'll come back and talk with me in a couple weeks about International Women's Day.
Oh, I would love to do that. Thank you. We've been international, so,
Yeah,
and we're both of those things.
we will definitely have to talk about our
We have
trip.
to cover India when we're doing that. Yeah.
Jinx, we said at the same time. All right, love you. Mwah.